Hi, my name is Heaven Allen, and I'm a mom. I'm a blessed mom, and I'm also very blessed to have my friend Teri Burrell here with me in my home today. Hi, Teri.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to get to talk about your mom story.
Oh, well, I definitely have some mom stories. Actually, I can tell you a mom story right now.
Okay.
Yesterday, Jalen, that's my son. I get a call from him yesterday from the school.
Okay.
And they tell me that he lost his tooth. I'm like, wow, the school's calling me to tell me they lost his tooth. That's great. Okay. And she proceeds to tell me, well, he got sick in the cafeteria. You're going to have to come pick him up. I was like, man, I'm going to have to come pick him up. So I went to go pick him up from school. I get him in the car. I come to find out that a kid put carrots on his tray. He didn't want to eat them, so he made himself sick. I was like,
awesome.
Wow.
And how old is Jalen?
He's 7.
Yeah, that's a typical
Almost 7
antic,
years.
yeah, of a 7-year-old. So, so what's your family dynamic like? What do you do? What?
Well, I am a single mom to an almost 7-year-old. I'll be 7 next month, and I work as a legal assistant during the day and minister by night.
Oh, so you have like a 9-to-5 job.
I do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you work in Houston downtown.
Yes, I work in downtown,
So
and
it's busy for you.
busy with that, and then the ministry, and then of course being, the number one only mom for him. Yeah. So
Yeah. So he goes to school. What grade is he in?
he's in first grade.
And this is Jalen.
Say hi to the camera.
Hi. Oh, yeah. There he is.
Back to the movie. It never fails.
Tell me a little bit about your childhood and your teenage years and what your family looked like.
Well, I have a family. There were 5 of us.
Okay.
My mom and my dad,
Mm-hmm.
and my sister and my brother. I'm the oldest. My mother actually had me out of wedlock.
Mm-hmm.
My biological father was not there, obviously, but she met an amazing man, and she married and was married to over 20 years, and that was my father and still is my father.
Yeah.
So, I was raised in a middle class, just average family.
Right here in Houston.
Here in Houston.
So you grew up with both of your parents, your mom and your dad, in the home.
Yes.
And had a couple of siblings. And they didn't divorce until you were
A little
young
bit
adult.
older.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it didn't really affect your childhood, your
Right.
teenage years at all. Would you say that you had a good relationship with your parents?
Yeah, I mean, just an average family. I mean, it wasn't, I think it was a little difficult for me as far as being the oldest and knowing that my biological father was not around.
I'm so sorry. Just can't help it. It's really cute.
I'm sorry. He just,
Welcome to the world of mom.
yeah, it's like, really? So, okay, Jalen. Okay, come here. Let's talk. This is serious mom talk now. Seriously. Okay, listen. I'm so glad you're enjoying the movie. However, if you want to go home, the sooner I get this done, the sooner we can go home, okay? So I need you to be quiet in there and go watch a movie. Okay. And when I'm done, I'll come get you, okay? I'm almost done. Now go get... Okay. Get that one on camera? Okay.
Well, we're gonna give you carrots.
Okay. Oh, no, it's him.
There might be throwing up and
Yes.
more teeth lost.
Yes. Okay, so we're talking about my family.
So we're talking about your family. It was normal family, I would say Midwest, but we're not in the Midwest. But
We're in the
you're
South.
just your normal
average, middle class.
Christmas, Thanksgiving.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
relatively easy and
Yeah, I mean,
As easy as normal can be.
yeah, and I mean, I played sports. I mean, I was a cheerleader in middle school and played soccer and ran track. So I was involved in, a lot of things. I always was involved in some kind of sport or something. So, I mean, it was, basically an average family. I mean, but every family has their issues.
Yeah, sure.
And for me, it was the hard part knowing that I didn't know my biological father, and it was, that one piece of the puzzle that I always wanted to know where I came from. And even though I had a father that I knew that loved me, and my parents always said, no matter what you do, we'll love you unconditionally. I knew that there was love in my home, but it was still hard for me to see my younger sister say things that her father, not her father, our father, that it was just her dad and it wasn't mine. And she was a kid. She would just say things like that out of anger. But it did something to me, and it really made me insecure and question. And I always wanted that pure love, I guess. I mean, I guess in my mind, that's kind of what I thought that's what I was missing, is that it was a different kind of love.
Well, was your family involved in church, in any kind of church at all?
Not really. I mean, there were times that we would go to church. I actually lived down the street from a church.
Okay.
So we would go here and there, maybe for like a month, and then we would stop going. But I would always walk down to the church because it was right down the street, and I would always get involved with the youth or church camps. So.
So what did you get out of your sporadic connection to spirituality, and God and the ways of the church?
I guess for me, that attracted me is that there was a God that loved me, and that I knew that He would always be there, that it wasn't conditional, that He was always there. And I always felt that love and that presence, that it would never go away. And I think, I kind of was always maybe in the back of my mind with my dad now that it could go away, even though they said they loved me unconditionally.
Yeah.
And then, my parents divorced when I was 20 or 21. And going through that, even as a young adult, it was still difficult, because then I felt like I was always my mom's.
Yeah.
So does this now mean he's not going to be my father? Which that wasn't the case. He is still my dad to this day.
Yeah.
But I was really afraid I was going to lose him.
Yeah.
So.
So that kind of puts you into an unsettled situation, not knowing where to seek that fatherly love from. That
right.
I think all little girls, they need that. They need to feel loved by their dad, and so many women are not, either don't have loving dads, or dads that abuse them, or just they don't know their fathers. So they see God as the only father that they've ever known, represented by their human counterparts there. So they don't know God like He truly is, because He's represented by their biological fathers in a way. In our minds, it's hard for us to grasp the concept there.
But I mean, it makes sense though, because in my situation, I knew my dad would always love me unconditionally. I think the only difference was for me is that I knew the earthly father, my dad that raised me. Once my parents divorced, then it was a situation where my mother always, growing up, I think maybe she felt bad that I didn't have my biological father in my life, so she always wanted to reassure me and say, well, hey, it's just me and you. It's just but it kind of separated me from my brother and my sister.
Yeah.
And from my dad. And I don't think she intentionally meant that, but that's kind of how it felt. So when they divorced, I really felt that separation, and maybe it was just in my mind. I don't think it was really that way, but in my mind at that moment, and the emotions of it all, the divorce, I felt like that we were separated.
So when did you start? What did you do at that point? You started seeking for that love again, that unconditional love.
Yeah, I was lost, and so I ended up moving to California and just trying to run away from it all, trying to find. I was searching for something, and so I moved to California, and that's where I met a couple of girls, and they were working in the sex industry, and I got involved with that, and at first it was fun and games, and it was just because of the money, and then it got a little dangerous. So I decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to go back to Houston, back to reality, and that's
home safe.
Yeah, home safe, exactly. So I'll come back to Houston. I'm a personal trainer. Things are going well, but my clientele, it's not picking up, and I'm struggling for money. And there it was. It was just another situation where an opportunity, of course, it arose. I mean, for me to get back involved with that, but this time it was working in a strip club, and it just,
I think a lot of people don't know that, especially those that live outside of Houston, they don't realize that Houston is a top city for sex industry and the sex trade industry. I know that Atlanta is well known for having a lot of strip clubs, but Houston is in the same situation.
Yeah, we have over 300, clubs, strip clubs, massage parlors, and that's not even including, the prostitutes on the streets of Houston.
So you had to move out of Houston, being that you were part of a good family, and that you kind of kept a suburban life as a child. You had to move out of Houston to be exposed to that life, but when you came back, it followed you.
Basically.
Yeah. Wow. And how long were you involved in stripping or exotic dancing? Or
it was a few years, and and of course, it was only for one night type situation.
Okay.
But it ended up,
you were financially struggling.
Yeah, I mean, you would need the money. Hey, I can make $600 real quick. Let me just go to the club instead of working.
Yeah.
Struggling for clients. It's just much quicker. But then when you would go in order to deal with these men, you would have to drink, and in order to stay awake, you would have to do, I would do coke. I mean, I would. Just the drugs and the alcohol, and then you're sleeping in late, and you're missing clients' appointments or calling you, and then you just feel like you're letting them down. At this point, you start getting not hard on yourself, but I mean, you just really you're in a bad place because you're like, oh man, I let this person down. I had a 6 o'clock appointment I was supposed to be at, and then you're embarrassed and you're ashamed, and you're just like, you know what? I'm going to quit, and I'll figure this out. I'll get another job somewhere, because you're so embarrassed.
Yeah.
But then, you need the money. Hey, I've got a bill due tomorrow, so let me just go ahead and work again. And it was just a cycle that you get sucked into. And then at that point, you're like, well, I've already been doing it for a couple of months now,
And it almost can sear your conscience, because you get used to things.
Yeah.
And you set a new normal for yourself.
Exactly. And then when your friends find out what you're doing, you're even more isolated, because they're like, well, the world says, Teri, once a stripper, always a stripper.
Wow.
And you kind of take on that mindset. Well, I guess once a stripper, always a stripper. I guess this is going to be my life.
Did your friends change because you wanted them to? And what I mean by change, did you get new friends because you wanted to do away with your old friends because you were embarrassed of your lifestyle? Or is it just because your good friends, those that would help influence you positively, kind of
maybe I didn't
kept you at arm's length?
I don't think so. I mean, none of the friends at the time that I had really. I mean, they weren't bad people.
Yeah.
But I mean, they didn't encourage me to leave. I mean, basically, they just really gave me a hard time about it. And they were like, we would go out dancing one night or something, and we would just be dancing at a regular nightclub. And if a certain way that I danced, oh, you're dancing like a stripper. And, they were like embarrassed to be around me. And it just really felt like I was, I wasn't accepted. I mean, it was just...
I would imagine that just continued to spin that web around you, isolate you, like you said.
And then it pushed you further into it because, of course, if you go to the clubs, it's, like you said, it's another normal. It's a new normal.
Yeah.
So, of course,
and
they're
you're welcomed there.
Yeah, they're not, they get it,
Yeah.
And so I didn't feel that judgment, but I mean, that came with its own issues. I mean, the drugs and the alcohol and...
Yeah.
I mean...
So at what point did you start thinking, I can't do this anymore? What was your Damascus experience? Did you pass by a church and, this light shine down through the steeple? Or, did someone meet you on the street and shake you and say, God told me to tell you something?
Absolutely not.
Well, what happened?
My God moment was... in my car, I was drunk and high. I come out of a blackout. I'm somewhere on one of the highways of Houston, and I look around, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Last thing I remember was being inside the VIP of the strip club, and at 11 o'clock at night, and it's 3 in the morning now. Where am I at? Where have I been for these last 4 hours? Have I killed somebody? Have I run somebody over? Has somebody raped me? Like, what has happened to me these last few hours?
Yeah.
And it's the worst feeling in the world. And I remember holding onto the steering wheel and crying and, how did I get myself here? God, save me, please. I don't know how I got myself in this mess, but I don't know how I'm going to get out. I didn't finish college. What am I going to do? I can't get a job. What am I going to tell them? I've been stripping for the past 3 years. Like, what am I going to do? And it was that sobering moment, just crying. And, we think that, God, how he works the next day, if he were to, I'd get a phone call, hey, we have a job for you. It didn't work like that. It took for me to have that moment in my car, and then exactly a week later, I'm in the club, the strip club that I'm working in, and the club gets raided, and I go to jail. And here it is, I'm sitting in jail, and I'm like, really? How am I going to get a job now? I'm really not. But see, we don't realize how God works.
Yeah.
And what he can do in your life. I mean, of course.
I think when we start turning toward him and we start asking him for that help, then he sends it in a way that we can't back out. It's like, okay, this is the deal we've made. You didn't know, but we made a deal that night that you said this.
Yes.
So I'm going to help you help yourself.
Right. And it's not going to be the easy way. but you know what? I look back now and I think, had he have given me a job the next day or something and not have gone to jail, I don't know if I would have appreciated it. I don't know if I would have gotten out of that. It took for me to fall in a pit for him to pull me out, and now he's placed me in the palace. My life is so different now, and I'm so much more joy. And
so you gave your life to Christ and rededicated.
Not at that moment.
No. When did that happen? When did you dedicate your life?
That was my moment.
Okay.
That I knew something was happening. I actually work one night at the strip club. I meet my son's father. I get pregnant. So of course I'm not dancing anymore.
Yeah.
But after I became a mother, after I had my son, a few months later, that's when I gave my life to Christ. Because your life, you're not living for yourself anymore. Yeah. When you look at that child, you want the best for them. You want to do whatever for this child that you have.
And I think at the time that you become a parent is when you realize grace, what grace truly is.
Exactly, because everything that I've done, and you bless me with this,
Yeah.
I'm not, you say to yourself, I'm not worthy.
Yeah.
But you love me unconditionally.
Unconditionally.
You love me despite that you would bless me with this child.
Yeah. So this whole theme in your life has, even from the beginning, has been, you've been told you are going to be loved unconditionally. And then you seek out that unconditional love, that pure love, even at churches. And then you're constantly seeking for not to be rejected. You want to be loved no matter what. And I think that is common. I've experienced that myself. You know, just wanting to be loved no matter how many times I mess up.
Right.
And that's the beauty of grace. And in becoming a mommy, I think we realize, oh, this is how God loves us. You know, and we're,
Not
like the scripture
perfect.
says, we're evil.
Yeah.
And still we give good things to our children.
Right.
And then God, like abounding love, abounding unconditional
Yes.
love, which since you have dedicated your life to God and you have made a recent turn in the last 5-6 years, is that correct?
7 years.
7
Almost
years.
almost 7
Almost
years.
7
Yes.
after having Jalen.
Yes.
At what point did you decide, you know what? Not only has God brought me through this, but I want to be open about this. I want to tell others about it. I want to help those that can't help
Right.
themselves and are caught in the same situation I am in. What have you done with that?
Well, I mean, excuse me. Once I rededicated and I found a church, the 429, that I'm a part of, and that's when I made the decision that it was time for me to help other girls in the same situation. But with that, and that is where Unconditional Love Ministries was birthed, was out of the 429, out of my testimony, where God has brought me. But now, being a mother, having my son, I feel like it is my duty as his mother to teach him how to respect women, and the culture and the world that we live in, it's sexually energized.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
anything that you watch on TV, I don't remember it ever being like that
Yeah.
when I was younger. And so for me, God has blessed me with this child that I have to, is that the right word, be a good steward over his life,
Yeah.
and to teach him how to respect women, certain things not to look at. But he's still young.
Sure.
But, you know.
So you have to remain age appropriate.
Right.
But what precautions are you taking? Do you put some sort of restriction on television?
Absolutely. We have a little password, and anytime he wants to watch something, he has to ask me to put in the password. But I have to protect him. I can be as protective as possible, but I also have to, like you were saying, be age appropriate to teach him things, because when he's in school, I won't be there. But I need to make sure he knows what's right and what's wrong. So when he's in that situation, when boys are looking at pictures of girls in bikinis or, in their bathing suits or
Right.
with nothing at all, that he knows that's wrong, and that you have to respect a woman, and that you can't do those things. You can't look at a girl a certain way. You can't touch them any way you want. That is, you have to respect their space, their bodies.
Because the whole point of the sex industry is that men are the voyeurs, and for the most part, I realize that there are exceptions, people with weird fetishes and things like that, but men are the voyeurs and women are the victims. And it starts with not respecting
Right.
women and their privacy and their right to own their own bodies.
Right.
I think that's do you feel like it's too young to start, or is it never too young to start planting that in the minds of your children?
I think it depends on the child.
Okay.
I know that some of my friends, they have sons, Jalen's age or older, that really may not have the same issues as he does. I notice that he's a little bit more curious. So for me, I have to address that.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I don't give out full details. I just explain to him what the right thing is to do. Like
Sure.
I said,
And does he know, obviously being so young, it's going to be hard for him to understand your past, but being that Unconditional Love Ministries is kind of out in the forefront and you're very open to adults, how open have you been with Jalen?
He knows that we go to the girls in the strip clubs, and he's asked what a strip club is. I have told him it's girls that take off their clothes, and I said, and it's not, they shouldn't do that.
Right.
That God loves us, and those are our temples, and we should respect it. And as a young man, and as an older man, that these are the places that you don't want to go, because you need to respect them.
That's right.
And just love on them, So I have explained that to him, and he doesn't understand why they would do that. But also, it's like I said, he's been curious, so I've had to explain a little bit to him.
Sure. And that comes as a result of other parents that don't parent quite so well and send their kids off to school, and they find out through no matter how hard you try to teach your children.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to come out through their interaction with other children. And
it's a matter of us informing them.
Yeah.
Obviously in the right way to inform them. But with Jalen, he's a little bit more curious, so I have to explain these things because I can't avoid it. Mm-hmm. It's better that I address it now than later on and avoid it, and then him make the wrong decisions. So I have to let him know.
Yeah. Does it ever cross your mind, oh, come on, Teri, let up a little bit, you're being overprotective? Or do you feel like in this day and age, and with what you've been through, overprotective shouldn't even be a word in your vocabulary?
No, there's certain things that I'm not going to tell him, but there are certain things that I have to address, and I don't think that's being overprotective. I think it's just about educating him, because he is my responsibility.
Yes.
And nobody's going to teach him about respect and about women and about, a lot of parents don't talk about sex to their children.
Yeah.
Mine did, but, it definitely wouldn't have been the way I would have taught, definitely not the way I would teach Jalen. It's different, but this is...
Well, it's a different day and age than when your parents were bringing you up. It's
absolutely.
And I think that's also why it's important to teach values and to teach principles, because our world is constantly changing. And if you teach them, you can't touch this specific thing, or you can't watch this show on television, before you know it, there will be no television. It's going to be on the internet, and there's that loophole there.
And also you want to tell them why.
Yeah.
Like, why is it that we don't do this?
Yeah.
My parents, they knew that I was in the sex industry. My mother, and she would always say, you shouldn't do that. Morally, it's just not right. Okay, it's not right, and what? Yeah. Give me a reason why. Give me a good reason. Because that there is a God that loves you unconditionally.
Yeah.
That there's, that He's made you to be in the likeness of His image. And, if somebody would to speak those things to me, and that you are precious and, in
so
His
the
eyes.
why answer, when you're saying why, was not because it's immoral. In other words, you didn't want to be answered. You didn't want your why question to be answered with another sterile answer.
Yeah, because I said so, that's why.
Yes. Yeah. You wanted it to be...
some substance behind it. Tell me why. Yeah. Give me an answer.
Yeah.
Why? Why should I not?
Why should I care?
Yeah, why should I?
Because I don't care about morality right now. Why should I care?
Mm-hmm.
And it's about self-value. And viewing ourselves as God sees us.
Right.
So you have already started the process of telling Jalen a little bit about your past, and obviously as he gets older, you will continue to fill in some details, I'm sure, for him as he becomes older so that you can continue to educate him. Would you say that a lot of strippers are moms?
Yeah, absolutely.
So they're having to struggle with an extra amount of guilt, knowing that one day they're going to have to explain what they do to their children. And what would you say to moms and even in single women in this industry, or that may have had to deal with that in the past, how they can find healing and where they can go to find God? What can they do to get out of their predicament that they're in?
Well, I think number one is that you have to really address it within yourself and be honest with yourself, you know. But look, this is what I've done, whether it's been in the past or this is what I'm doing right now. But to know that in Christ, that all of that he loves you regardless.
Yeah.
And that if you just give it over to him, that he can take all that away. And I think for me, by even sharing my testimony and now being a mother, that sharing, you know, where I've come from, the freedom that I have found in talking about it, and it doesn't even necessarily mean you have to be on a TV show to talk about it, or
Sure.
you know, just someone close that will just love you and accept you for who you are, just to be able to deal with that and say, look, this is what I've done, okay, and let's deal with this. But if you give it to God and you ask for him to forgive you, I mean, everything starts over. Everything is new.
Because the shame of this whole ordeal and the shame of your guilt that you feel is going to keep you away from God even longer, because I think we have to realize that God's going to love us. You had mentioned in earlier conversations that I've had with you that you didn't think you could get to God because you thought you had to get everything right first.
Right. And that's not true. It's not true at all. I think it's just a matter of being in that situation where you're just desperate and letting him know that I can't handle this on my own. And that's the answer that they need to hear, and that what I needed to hear. You don't have to deal with it on your own.
Yeah.
That there is a God that loves you unconditionally, and all you have to do is just tell him and let him know. And he already knows. He just wants to hear your heart. Yeah. And he can take all that away. And that's the beautiful part about it.
And there is a church, and there is a minister, and there is someone, some lady on the pew, someone in the grocery line that has a connection to God that can help you. You just have to be ready.
Yeah.
And even if not, maybe God will raise your club, you know, and push the envelope for you so that you just have to make a decision.
Yeah, it truly is. It's where you, and like I said, I didn't know how to get out of it. I didn't know the answer, but just calling on him, he'll trust me, he'll handle it. And he'll do it his way, but his way is the best way.
Well, Teri, I am constantly inspired. Follow you and Unconditional Love Ministries on Twitter and Facebook, and I am overwhelmed almost every single time that I see a tweet from you, that you are so open about this, and I believe that is wonderful, that you are owning your platform to minister to those that need help. And I believe it is, you are called of God, and I am so excited that you would come and share with me. And one thing that you said in this interview that has just made me want to leap for joy, you made the statement that someone told you, once a stripper, always a stripper, and you are living proof that that is not the case. And I believe that needs to be heralded. You know, it needs to be said over and over. You are not going to be a stripper. If you don't want to be, you don't have to be, and that is
Yeah.
not something that is in your destiny.
Right.
It's just that is overwhelming to me. That makes me all tingly inside to know that there's hope. There's
Yes,
hope.
there is hope.
There is hope.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing with me, and I'm so blessed and honored that you would be here. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions just so we can walk out of this, with a light, wonderful feeling. But just some nonsense questions, and just right off the top of your head,
Okay.
just answer.
I'm excited.
They're not change the world questions, but dog or cat? What do you prefer?
Cat.
Cook or eat out?
Cook.
What was your pregnancy craving when you were pregnant with Jalen?
Beans and weenies and macaroni and cheese. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Every night.
What does your happy place look like? It can be a place actually in existence, or something somewhere you go in your head when you're stressed.
Somewhere on the beach. Tropical island. Just
Are we
relaxing.
talking Galveston Beach or like
No,
Maui?
No, we're talking about like Maui. Somewhere like nice, tropical, relaxing. Yeah.
So, and what's your favorite hobby?
My favorite hobby.
Yeah.
When I have time.
Yeah. What do you long to get to do when you have an hour or two? What do you like to do?
Pamper myself.
Pedicure,
pedicure, manicure, something. It's always about kids.
And what was your favorite book, or I guess I should say Jalen's favorite book when he was a little kid, tiny little kid, that you read to him? What was that book?
Oh,
if you
gosh.
can remember.
I'm thinking of this one. I think it's To the Moon and Back.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that's the name of it, but
Yeah,
it's with the
I
little
think
rabbit to the moon and back.
Oh, I love you.
I love you.
Yes, I know which one you're
Yes.
talking about. It's about the parent bunny, and he's
The bunny. I love you to the moon and back.
Yeah,
or-
I remember. What do you find yourself saying that you always said you would never say, and it got on your nerves when your mom said it, but you find yourself saying it anyway?
I've never seen
Or
it.
something that your mom does that kind of got on your nerves as a kid, but you find yourself doing it.
Oh, licking and your finger to wipe something off. That.
So mom spit,
Yes,
pretty much.
yes.
You take full advantage of mom spit
Yeah.
superpower.
I'm like, come here. And I hated when my mom did that, and I do that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've got a few of those.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Teri, again so much for coming to my home and sharing your story. And I hope this isn't the last time we get to talk.
Yes, absolutely.
Remember to visit her website, her blog, I don't know if you have a blog right now, but I know you have a Facebook page.
It's coming soon.
And you do have a Facebook page, though, right?
Yes.
Yes. And Twitter,
On Twitter.
Unconditional Love Ministries.
Yes.
And go onto that site, support this ministry. If you can, send gifts. There are certain gifts that she brings to the women in the clubs, and that she asks being donated. Or you can donate monetarily. But this is a wonderful cause for you to get involved in, and it is changing lives. I've heard so many reports, and I want you to get on her Facebook page, follow her on Twitter, and you will see how much this woman of God is changing lives in Houston, Texas, and beyond. And again, thank you for joining us. My name is Heaven Allen with doublyblessedmom.com, and I don't know about you, Teri, but I'm a blessed mom. Are you a blessed mom?
I'm definitely a blessed mom.
Thank you
Doubly.
for joining us.